It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations, we cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Cruz.
You know, it's been a fun week. For the last few days, I've been exhibiting at the Washington Sportsman Show in Puyallup. It's a big show, the second biggest in the greater Northwest, with some 40,000 attendees expected through the gates leading into the fairgrounds before it's all said and done this weekend. I've really enjoyed letting some new listeners know about our program that didn't before, and depending on where they're from, steering them towards our affiliates in Western Washington like Seattle Sports Radio 950 KJR, KMAS AM 1030 out of Shelton, KONP 1450 out of Port Angeles, KELA 1470 in Centralia, and KXRO 1320 broadcasting out of Grays Harbor County. Yes, this show does draw folks from a lot further away than just Seattle and Tacoma. This week on the show, we'll be telling you about a few other sportsman shows taking place in the greater Northwest and, for that matter, around the country, to include places like New Jersey, Wisconsin, Utah, Tennessee, and more. And we'll also get a chance to check in with Mark Holyoak. He's the longtime spokesperson for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Founded in 1982 and based in Missoula, Montana, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation has nearly 235,000 members, and they've been doing some great work for elk conservation and hunting. They update their members on this work through an e-newsletter called Elk Country News, and Mark and I will be sharing the latest from this month's newsletter with you, covering news in the Rocky Mountain West, Utah, and Wisconsin. We'll also talk about catfish in the hour ahead. In case you didn't know, there's a national catfishing tournament circuit out there, similar to what's set up for bass and walleye anglers around the country. It's called the Cabela's King Cat Tournament Trail, and this year will feature 19 events in 11 states across the South, the East, and the Midwest. Jeremy Coe is the man in charge of all of these tournaments, and we'll talk to him about where they're taking place, how they attract both amateurs and pro anglers, and the big money and prizes that await the winner of the King Cat Classic, which is the championship tournament for these anglers. In addition to this, we'll also get into how these tournament anglers are catching their fish, and I think some of the techniques they are using to catch big channel cats, flatheads, and blues from the mighty Mississippi to the Tennessee River. You'll find them pretty darn interesting. There's another way to catch catfish that Jeremy won't be touching on. One of the sponsors of our program is the Dalles Area Chamber of Commerce in North Central Oregon, located just a few miles away from a pretty good catfishing river called the John Day. One of the members of this chamber is Paul Anderson. He owns a fly shop in the Dalles called Fly Fishing Strategies, and it turns out he's got all sorts of advice about how to catch catfish and bullhead with a fly rod and no bait. That's right, just artificial flies and streamers. Take it all together, and between elk, catfish, and sportsman shows, we've got a really interesting hour of hunting, fishing, and conservation coming your way. Let's kick it off by previewing some sportsman shows taking place out on the West Coast. These are occurring in Oregon and Northern California. They're being put on by exposure shows, and the man behind these shows is Joe Pate, coming at us today from Connecticut, of all places. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, thanks. A pleasure to be here. How's everything going up there in Washington?
Things are going well in Washington State. I have loved your shows in the past. Can't wait to tell our listeners about them today. Why don't you give our listeners the rundown of the 4 shows you're putting together this winter?
Well, we've got 4 shows beginning in Eugene on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of February. We get on to Roseburg for the 15th to the 17th of February. We're in Medford the 22nd to the 24th of February, and then down to Anderson, the Shasta District Fairgrounds, in the first weekend of March 1, 2, 3.
That NorCal Boat Sports and RV show should be a good one. But frankly, all of those shows are good ones because you bring in a lot of what you call showstoppers to your shows that really attract the crowds. Let's run through some of those. We'll start off with the grizzly experience. Most people never get to see a real grizzly bear in their entire lives.
Right. We say engage an 8-foot tall, 800-pound, or 7-foot tall, 700-pound grizzly bear and his little sidekick, and possibly a little baby Maine black bear. Again, the reason being that people don't have an opportunity to safely encounter these animals, and I think it enhances the appreciation and admiration for them and their conservation and preservation efforts. And it's why we always try to have a live animal act at our shows. It's one of our features annually. You know, keep in mind, John, we're in relatively smaller markets, Eugene, Roseburg, Medford, Northern Cal, Anderson, and Reading area. And what we really have, I think, is a glorified sportsman's fair. And what we do is try to show the culture of outdoor recreation, hunting, fishing, camping, backpacking, hiking, biking, RVing, ATVing, boating, and so on. And all of the industry and services and products that are familiar with it, all the governmental agencies that regulate and manage it. And that's what we're about. You know, we're not trying to be the hook and bullet show. We're certainly not in big enough markets to have great depth in our guides. We try to have Alaska to Africa represented, occasionally the Baja and other areas that make it of interest. And so the grizzly experience is something that we bring a lot of families in with these shows. This is an opportunity to share some great times, and the feedback we get, John, is very good. So that is one. The grizzly experience this year is just one of three what I call major attractions and showstoppers. The second one being the Lumberjills, the world champion Lumberjill shows. They call it Chicks with Axes. These women are in incredible shape, and they demonstrate the outdoor recreation with the lumbering industry, which is, in fact, they're part of the outdoor world, and certainly in the Northwest. They'll have several shows a day, and a very interesting and exciting presentation.
I have seen the Lumberjills in action before, and folks, log rolling competitions, you don't want to miss those. You've got a couple of celebrities, too. Tina Shear, who's been on Survivor, and Tim Sylvia, ex-mixed martial arts champion and the host of a hunting television show, too.
Yeah, Tim, he's an outdoor enthusiast. He comes from Maine, and so, by the way, does one of the principals of the Lumberjill shows. But Tim Sylvia made a dramatic impression on the UFC market in its infancy. At 6'8" and 350 pounds, he was a bruiser and a force to be contended with. But his love of the outdoors, especially hunting in his Iowa lands and thereabouts, he's a consummate outdoorsman, but really a great hunter, turkey, bear, and deer. And he's had this show now for 3 years, very successful show called Hit Squad Outdoors, ironically. And it's just gone from the Pursuit Channel to the Sportsman's Channel and national distribution. So he is promoting the fact that this show is now on the Sportsman Channel and is far more accessible to subscribers than it used to be.
Some other attractions you're going to see at these shows, which are very family-friendly, include an air rifle range, a fish pond for the kids to catch trout from, and if you are looking at building a cabin, check out the Tough Shed cabin they're going to have on site. This is just some of the many things you're going to find at exposure shows. If you want to find out more, go to their website. It's exposureshows.com. That's exposureshows.com. Again, it's taking place in Eugene, February 1st through the 3rd at the Lane Event Center, Roseburg at the Douglas County Fairgrounds, February 15th through the 17th, Medford in Southern Oregon, February 22nd through the 24th at the Jackson County Expo Center, and in Anderson is the NorCal Boat Sports and RV Show, attracting all sorts of folks from Reading, March 1st through the 3rd.
John, one last thing. Keep in mind, too, it's our largest RV, ATV, and boat show that we've ever put together, and I'm very proud of the assemblage that we're offering this year. We also have a reality show TV star Tina Shear and Basin Tackle Rob, who's a sort of a radio personality from the coast. And all in all, you go to exposureshows.com. You can keep the latest with us. But sure appreciate your interest, John, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Look forward to seeing you as well, Joe. Take care. The two biggest fishing and hunting shows in the Northwest are taking place courtesy of O'Loughlin Trade Shows. The Washington Sportsman Show is happening January 23rd through the 27th at the Fairgrounds in Puyallup, and you won't want to miss the Pacific Northwest Sportsman Show either at the Expo Center in Portland, February 6th through the 10th. There will be hundreds of exhibitors and up to 100,000 attendees, along with the seminars and demos from experts there, and you'll find incredible deals too, only at these shows. It's the Washington Sportsman Show in Puyallup, January 23rd through the 27th, and the Pacific Northwest Sportsman Show in Portland, February 6th through the 10th. They're the biggest and best shows around. We'll see you there.
There's a place where the fishing is year-round, where the sun shines 300 days a year. The wineries and breweries are right downtown. The hiking and cycling offers spectacular views you just don't get in the big cities. Fortunately, the place is real and vibrant. It's the Dalles, Oregon, just 90 short minutes from Portland, along the gorgeous Columbia River, where the adventures are limited only by your imagination. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
We've been telling you about Sportsman's Cove Lodge in Southeast Alaska for a while now, and there's a reason. They are the only Alaska lodge we talk about in this show. It's because they're truly Alaska's best lodge. The adventure starts with a float plane ride from Ketchikan, after which you'll get the chance to experience some of the best hospitality, food, and wonderful people you'll ever meet. Wildlife is abundant, from bears and deer to eagles and whales, and let's not forget the reason you're here, the fishing. Halibut, salmon, lingcod, rockfish, true cod, and more. It's all waiting for you in abundance at Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Book your trip today at alaskasbestlodge.com. That's alaskasbestlodge.com for Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. I thought it'd be a good time to check in with Mark Holyoak in Missoula, Montana. That's where he is working with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. That's where they have their headquarters. And by the way, if you ever find yourself in Missoula, drop by their headquarters. They got a great visitor center there that's definitely worth the stop and worth your time. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, John. Appreciate it. And let me throw something out there for people who are close to Missoula. We have a brand new exhibit here that's from the National Geographic that has to do with elk migrations in and around Yellowstone. It's pretty cool. You stand there and you know, in this modern day of touching screens and all sorts of things like that, where you can touch the screens and see migrations and actually watch them move, where a particular elk herd goes from here and travels 100 miles away to here, and it follows 8 or 10 different elk herds in the area. So we're just grateful that National Geographic has chosen us, but it's a really cool deal, and people should check it out.
Oh, very cool. I am definitely checking it out the next time I drive there. So thanks for that. But what I wanted to talk to you about today was Elk Country News. This is a newsletter that members of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation get, and I love reading this every month. And I just thought we'd talk through some of the topics and get people, well, excited about signing up for this and let them know what's going on with your organization. I think we'll start off with the work you've been doing in Montana and Idaho, because some good things have been happening in those two states.
Yeah, we've got a number of projects that have happened in the last year and happened over the last several years. If my math is right, I believe we had 4 different projects in Montana this year and 1 in Idaho. They're either habitat or land protection projects or habitat projects that benefit, what elk need to survive out there. But we've had 4 in Montana, 1 in Idaho. They can be conservation easements, where we work with a landowner, a conservation-minded landowner who wants to maintain the wildlife values of their land, to keep it as is, as opposed to, in this day and age when there's so much pressure for development, to push or eliminate some elk country that's out there. And also a smattering of projects in Montana where we discovered some private land that was in elk range or elk corridors, purchased that, and then hung on to it until we can convey it to an agency like the Bureau of Land Management or the U.S. Forest Service or even a state agency, a state fish and game agency. And then, when they get a hold of it, they open it up for public access, and then everybody can get in there. They can hike, they can fish, they can hunt, they can pick huckleberries, just hang out, kind of do whatever. So it's been a good year in those states and around the country. If you want to maybe look back at the bigger picture, Just in the last year, we've opened or improved public access to more than 26,000 acres across 5 states, permanently protected more than 13,000 acres of land across 8 states. And so it's been a good year in Montana, Idaho, and other places as well.
Oh, it certainly has. So great work there. Unfortunately, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation is spending some time in court, and it's about 2 subjects that, well, they're always making the news. Grizzly bears and wolves. What's going on there?
Well, we just maintain the stance that we've always had when it comes to predators, and that is that, they have a place on the landscape, but they need to be managed. I mean, our elk are managed, our deer are managed, antelope are managed, and predators need to be managed too, so everything fits together. And so, say the wolves were delisted in and around the Great Lakes states. They've had some litigation that was brought forth by environmental groups, and judges have made decisions to take them off. Same thing happened in Wyoming, and so we continue to advocate to just place those critters under state management just like all others have been. And then, the same thing goes for grizzlies. There's been a lot of attention in and around the Yellowstone area. The grizzlies were delisted. The wildlife managers that were out there looked at the numbers and deemed that they were recovered. The professional wildlife managers, and we've had lawsuits in the past that said, when some of the feed goes away for grizzlies, they can't handle it. Well, it's been proven that they just shift from, say, pine nuts to trout. That's not an issue anymore. And there are also safety nets that are in place that would trigger relisting if that needs to happen. So we strongly support state management of grizzlies, of wolves, just like elk, deer, and other animals.
And to you and me, and to a lot of our listeners, this is a no-brainer that predators should be managed just like any other animal. And it just infuriates me that you have environmental groups that literally just use emotional arguments and feelings and somehow convince judges to go along with them to basically halt modern wildlife management and science. So we'll save this for another time because we could go on and on and on and on. Instead, let's talk about happier topics, because in Elk Country News, you also talk about some of your members and some of the hunts they've gone on. Couple of fun hunts, nice hunts that happened for members in Utah and Wisconsin.
Yeah, we've had the opportunity over, I believe it was last Veterans Day, to have some vets that were on the ground in Utah and take them out, and they took part in their first ever elk hunts. And it's your typical hunt. When you go out, sometimes you're successful and sometimes you're not. And a few of them were successful and others were not, and they just had a terrific time. And so for us, it's important to recognize and honor our veterans and for the things that they do, and really everybody out there who values elk country. And Wisconsin was interesting this year, and this was the first ever managed elk hunt that they've had. So they've not hunted elk since, before the turn of the century.
Wow.
And even back then, it was just, there weren't a lot of regulations and rules in place. But we've assisted with elk restoration in Wisconsin. And the thing that's really amazing about this, people are so excited up there. I was up there last summer for a long weekend, but when it came time for the hunt, more than 38,000 people applied for that hunt. And what's great about that is the money that was generated, more than $270,000 specifically, that they can take that money and turn around and put it toward elk conservation efforts in their own state, toward habitat, toward management, and things that are only going to benefit elk there. So that's just a terrific conservation success story. And just so you know, we're actually offering and providing funding and on-the-ground volunteer manpower and support to put some more elk in Wisconsin this year as well. Hopefully that's on track, and we believe that'll be going forward here shortly.
This is absolutely fantastic. And folks, this is all covered in this month's edition of Elk Country News. Now, it's only available to members, but it's really easy to join this conservation organization that's nationwide and believes that hunting is conservation. What does it cost to be a member? What is it, $35, Mark?
$35, yes, if you're an annual member, and the majority of our members are annual members. We have others that there's different levels that are available as well, sponsorship levels, support levels. You could be a life member. It's just kind of whatever you'd like to do. It's interesting, and I'm looking out in our parking lot here, and we have a number of Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation license plates. Those are available in different states. Idaho's one, Montana's one, other states. So there's lots of different ways to support, and the thing that we just like to say is we just really appreciate everybody who does support us, because we're trying to do tangible, on-the-ground conservation work that matters for our wildlife and our wild landscapes. And so if you're a $35 year member or a life member, we just appreciate everybody that helps pitch in for the cause.
Well, folks, the place to sign up, and I'd highly recommend doing so, is rmef.org. That's rmef.org for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Again, for as little as $35 a year, you can help this organization that's doing so much, not just for elk, but all sorts of other wildlife too, and for hunters as well. The website, one more time, rmef.org. Mark, always a pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Hey, you bet. Thank you, John.
It doesn't matter what sort of adventure you're after, whether it's big game deep in the backcountry, a day of fishing out on the water, or an overnight in the great outdoors. At Sportsman's Warehouse, we've got the gear in here for what you need out there. Gear up for your next adventure at one of the Sportsman's Warehouse stores or shop online. Sportsman's Warehouse, America's premier outfitter.
Looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer an affordable platform to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting host John Cruz through his website at AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. But hurry, if you wait too long, this big opportunity might just get away. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. We've got a different type of fishing to talk about this week. It's catfishing, and it's not just catfishing, it's tournament catfishing. The person we're talking to is Jeremy Coe. He's the tournament director for the Cabela's King Cat Tournament Trail with 19 events in 11 states this year. Jeremy, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you all for having us on. We're excited to be all over the country this year, and we're expanding quite a bit in 2020 as well. So a lot of cool things happening in the catfish world. It's growing quick, so we want to thank y'all for having us on.
You know, I've got to ask you, give or take, how many anglers participate in the King Cat Tournament Trail? Are we talking hundreds here?
Oh, yes. We're talking thousands over the period of a year. You know, we go from Texas and Kansas, Nebraska, all the way out to the East Coast. So there's so many fishermen on so many different bodies of water that fish for all three different species of catfish. So there's many, many anglers that's targeting those fish that not necessarily fish our trail, but fish local clubs or just fish in general. So, yes, we're talking about quite a few anglers, 8.5 million in the United States to be exact. So.
I had no idea there were that many anglers that targeted catfish, but I understand why. They are a great fighting fish, they're a great eating fish, and a great sport fish as well. So let's get back to the tournament trail. The first one is taking place in a hurry. Where's it going to be and when?
We're going to start off on probably some of the most famous lakes in the competitive catfish world, or in the country for that matter, but we'll be on Santee Cooper Lakes, which is Lakes Marion and Moultrie. That's right there in Cross, South Carolina at Black's Camp. Two fantastic lakes, got big channels, big flatheads, big blues. So that'll be February 16th, and that ought to be a huge weigh-in, one of the biggest weigh-ins we see on a tournament schedule this year. Are we talking channel cats there, blues, or what? They have an abundance of all three species. You can come and fish for whatever you want to fish for, and whatever kind of water you want to fish for. One lake is a big, deep bowl, and then the upper lake, Lake Marion, is kind of a flat, swampy type lake. So you got a lot of different water to fish there. But the majority of the fish that we'll weigh in the tournament will be blue cats, a large number of those, and then we'll see some really good flatheads and channels as well mixed in those bags. Now, I was looking at the rest of your schedule, and again, you're in 11 different states this year across the South and the East and the Midwest, and I see you've got it broken down into local events
and super events. What's the difference between the two?
Yes, a local event is just a one-day tournament. It's a lower entry fee, a little bit lower payback. But the one-day event is a Saturday-only tournament. We'll have a captain's meeting Friday night. The super event is a 2-day event where they come in on a Thursday night for a captain's meeting, and they fish both Friday and Saturday. So it's a little more competitive. You can not necessarily weigh in or not have a really good weight on Friday and come in on Saturday and win it all. I've seen it happen many times across the country. So it makes it a little more competitive, those 2-day events. And like I said, it's a higher payback, an easier chance to qualify for that $120,000 Classic at the end of the year on Wheeler Lake in Decatur, Alabama.
Well, I want to talk about that in just a second, but I really like how this is structured because these local events with the entry fee is only $300. This really caters to the weekend angler, the amateur who just wants to get involved with this tournament trail, doesn't it?
Yes, that is correct. The guys that can't necessarily get off work or take off work a lot as well, this gives them a chance to come out on Friday, compete with some of the best, both amateurs, people that just got into catfishing, the pros or the experts that you can come show up and learn from. It's a great opportunity, these local events.
All right, well, let's turn our attention to that championship at Wheeler Lake, Alabama. Very famous impoundment of the Tennessee River. When's that taking place? What are the prize packages we're going to talk about here?
So the Classic, which you're talking about, the local and super events, the way you get qualified is to fish those qualifiers during the year. The top 3 finishers at one-day events qualify, the local events, and the super events qualify the top 25 to come to that $120,000 Classic. First place will be taking home a brand new $60,000 XL boat. It's their new catfish model. It's a 230 Stormcat. That's a 23-foot boat. It's huge. Got an 88-gallon live well in it, 250 Mercury motor on the back. Minn Kota trolling motor, Humminbird locators, rod holders made by Driftmaster, B&M poles. All you got to do is fill it up with gas and go fishing when you win that Classic. And then part of that Classic is $30,000 in the points race. The points race is based off your best 5 finishes throughout the year. So whether you fish 10 King Cat events throughout the year or whether you fish 5, your best 5 finishes are tabulated and will pay back $30,000 between 20 places in that points race this year.
Bottom line, folks, some serious prizes, some serious money from the Cabela's King Cat Tournament Trail. Again, we're talking to Jeremy Coe. He's the tournament director for this tournament trail. And let's switch topics a little bit. Let's talk about rules and tactics. Number one question I've got to ask, in the bass fishing world, no bait is allowed. But what about catfish? I mean, you pretty much have to use bait to be successful in these tournaments, don't you?
Yes, that is correct. You go to a lot of these southern lakes. You get up north and out west, it's not as demanding, but you come down here on the Tennessee, Ohio, Mississippi, Cumberland rivers, and skipjack, which is a river herring, is almost definite. You almost have to have that in a boat to compete. Shad is very popular, but these catfish, that's all they eat is the bait fish. They're eating bass, the crappie, whatever bait is in that body of water. So to catch those fish, you have to use what they're feeding on. So any kind of bait that's legal in the state that we're in or legal to use in our tournaments. You go to the Carolinas, you can't use a lot of normal bait fish that you see in the central part of the U.S. So whatever is legal in that state, we allow them to use. And a lot of that, like I said, is the skipjack, shad, bluegill, live bluegill, cut. As long as it's legal in that state, it's legal to use in our tournament.
Fascinating stuff. Are there any particular tactics that the more successful pros use to get on top of the leaderboard that separate them from the weekend anglers? The Florida catfish, as it grows, we're seeing a lot of new tactics come up. And you're seeing as many tactics as you would see in any other species of fish. Of course, you've got a lot of different water. You have lake fishing, which there's no current. You get out on the Mississippi River, and it's all the current you can wish for. Right.
So depending on what body of water you're fishing on, you see guys that are anchored up and let their lines go off the back into a brush pile or into a hole where there's fish. You see guys that are using their Minn Kota trolling motors to spot lock on areas or using them to make a controlled drift down a river ledge. There's guys using planer boards for catfish, just like you would for crappie or striper or walleye, which is really cool to see. But there's even tactics where they're using like a Zara spook type deal to suspend their bait up off the bottom and float it just enough to pick it up off the bottom that has rattles in it, rattles that go on line, just like you would see in any other species of fish to just catch their attention. You have suspend fishing where it's just rod straight down and drifting around looking for fish spread out. So there's all kinds of different things. One of the most popular techniques on our big rivers where there's current is bumping. And what that is you just go down the river with the current and one rod in your hand, which is kind of my favorite thing to do. It's just single pole, and you're just bouncing that bait and that weight off the bottom and looking for those fish. So you cover a lot of water doing that as well. So lots of different techniques depending on where you go.
Absolutely fascinating. That last tactic in particular, bumping, very similar to what steelhead anglers are doing this winter out on the West Coast. So there is definitely some connections between fisheries that you talked about here. I absolutely love this. Last thing, what's the website people can go to learn more about the Cabela's King Cat Tournament Trail?
So they can get all of our information, phone numbers, contacts with me, tournament directors, where we're going to be at, where everything's taking place. They can get on www.kingcatusa. That's KINGKAT-USA. That's cat with a K, kingcatusa.com. So, and they can find out everything they want to know about the catfish world, the industry, and the King Cat Tournament Series.
That's kingcatusa.com. Again, kingcat with a K, USA.com. Check it out and get involved in the world of tournament catfishing this year. It sounds like it's all sorts of fun. Jeremy, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Hey, thank you all for having us.
Hello, I'm Mark Hempstreet, owner of Shiloh Inns. Shiloh is proud to be celebrating over 40 years of providing you, our valued Shiloh customers, with Shiloh's sincere friendliness, efficient customer service, and clean, comfortable, attractive, non-smoking rooms and suites, all at an affordable price. Shiloh also offers many free amenities like free Wi-Fi and free continental breakfast or hot, full, delicious breakfast at most Shiloh Inns, as well as pools, spas, steam, sauna rooms, exercise fitness facilities, and business centers. And even the kids stay free. And for you dog lovers, Shiloh is very dog friendly. So ask your best friend where he or she wants to stay. Next time you're traveling for business or pleasure, we think you'll get a paws up for Shiloh Inns. For reservations, call 1-800-222-2244 or visit our website at shilohins.com. Shiloh Inns, affordable excellence. American family owned and proud of it.
We've been telling you about Sportsman's Cove Lodge in Southeast Alaska for a while now, and there's a reason. They are the only Alaska lodge we talk about on this show. It's because they're truly Alaska's best lodge. The adventure starts with a float plane ride from Ketchikan, after which you'll get the chance to experience some of the best hospitality, food, and wonderful people you'll ever meet. Wildlife is abundant, from bears and deer to eagles and whales, and let's not forget the reason you're here, the fishing. Halibut, salmon, lingcod, rockfish, true cod, and more. It's all waiting for you in abundance at Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Book your trip today at alaskasbestlodge.com. That's alaskasbestlodge.com for Sportsman's Cove Lodge.
There's a place where the fishing is year-round, where the sun shines 300 days a year. The wineries and breweries are right downtown. The hiking and cycling offer spectacular views you just don't get in the big cities. Fortunately, the place is real and vibrant. It's the Dalles, Oregon, just 90 short minutes from Portland, along the gorgeous Columbia River, where the adventures are limited only by your imagination. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
Are you looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer affordable platforms to reach thousands of listeners. Find out more by contacting John Cruz through his website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers seeks to ensure North America's outdoor heritage of hunting and fishing through education and work on behalf of wild public lands and waters. Lend your voice to the fight by visiting www.backcountryhunters.org and join the 25,000 men and women who have pledged to defend wildlife and public access. You can also demonstrate your support by signing up for the 2019 North American Rendezvous in Boise, Idaho, May 1st to the 5th.
Just a few minutes ago, we told you about the Cabela's King Cat Tournament Trail for catfish and about some tactics used to catch these fish. Now, we're going to tell you about an entirely different way to hook into catfish that will work anywhere in the country. Next up on America Outdoors Radio, we're talking catfishing, but not just any kind of catfishing. Catfishing with a fly rod. The person we're talking to, Paul Anderson, he is the owner of Fly Fishing Strategies Fly Shop located in the Dalles, Oregon. But what he's about to tell you will work just about anywhere. Paul, great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Judd. Good to talk to you.
So, Paul, I was jokingly talking to you about catfish on some of the areas in the Northwest where we can catch them and joking with you, boy, sure wish you could catch those on a fly. And you came right back with, you can. Tell our listeners more about this.
Absolutely, John. They are quite the predator. A lot of times catfish are associated with smelly baits or just bait in general, but they are quite the predator. They will root out things like crayfish. They'll ambush nymphs, bait fish. They are hungry and they will take a fly readily.
Let's talk about targeting catfish, whether they be channel cats or bullhead or blues, whatever they might be, using a fly rod. Now, the first challenge you're going to have is generally catfish water is not clear water, it's murky water. So what kind of flies are you using to get their attention?
Well, I would go with something that's a dark color, heavily weighted, maybe in the shape of a sculpin or of a crayfish, and something that's going to get down that you can maybe have the hook pointing up so you can drag it through the debris on the bottom in quick strips so that it's a jerky presentation to get their attention.
Interesting stuff. And so what kind of fly line are you recommending? What kind of rod are you recommending if you're going to be a catfish fly fishing aficionado?
I would use a full sink fly line, and of course the depth will determine how fast of a sinking fly line, but you just got to get your fly down by the bottom. And it's interesting, I've caught them in the middle of daytime on nymphs in a lake when I was fishing for trout, and just let the fly sink a little farther than I would have normally for trout. And they are one of the hardest fighting bulldog kind of fly battle that you're going to have. They're not dynamic. They're not going to jump. They're not going to be a big sprint like a trout or a bass, but they will grab your fly and swim, and it's hard to turn them. They're just so much power.
So leave the 3-weight at home, folks. Consider at least a 5-weight, probably a 7-weight, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. And if you're throwing a big crayfish pattern or something that's going to be a little heavier, it'd probably be a good idea to use a 6 through an 8-weight, just for the fact that you're going to need the power to get that big fly out there.
Well, this is great stuff. Again, if you want to try something different, target catfish with a fly rod. All of your fishing partners out there are going to look like you're crazy until you start reeling them in. Any other tips on fighting catfish when it comes to a fly rod versus fighting a trout?
Well, because you're usually fishing water that's not ultra clear and you're down deep, you don't need a long leader and you don't need a fine leader. So, you're talking about 10-pound or a 3X, 2X, 1X tippet. You don't have to be gentle, but then again, when they turn and run, channel catfish, they can go 10 pounds pretty easily. Let them go. Let them run, tire them out, and work them back in, because it takes a while.
So are we talking a hard hook set here, or just a lift and let them hook themselves because of the action you're describing?
No, I would give them the wood. I would grab the line and set it with a lot of gusto, sink the hook in good, and if this is not delicate, set the hook.
All right, last question I've got for you. You're located in north central Oregon. Most of your customers are after trout. Some of them are after smallmouth bass. Mm-hmm. Do you carry anything at your fly shop for people who come in and say, I want to go after catfish?
Absolutely. And a lot of the flies that we would use for catfish are very similar to the ones we'd use for smallmouth bass, and in the same locations. So if you're using crayfish, in the Columbia River per se down deep for smallmouth, you could conceivably get channel catfish as well. Same place.
And I'm guessing the tactics you just described are not only going to work in the Columbia River and its tributaries, they're going to work out in Tennessee on the Tennessee River, Kentucky Lake.
Absolutely. They always are going to be in the same type of water. They're just not going to be on top. They're going to be down there at the bottom, rooting around, and that's where your fly needs to be.
For our out-of-state listeners, can they go to your website at flyfishingstrategiesflyshop.com and buy some of these flies?
We can over the phone. I do not have an online store, but I do sell frequently over the phone, and I can take a credit card, feed it right into my machine, and right over the phone. Absolutely. All right. If you want to try something new this year, catching a catfish with a fly rod would definitely be a worthy quest. And go to flyfishingstrategiesflyshop.com to go ahead and talk to Paul Anderson about getting the flies you need to do this. Or if you're located in South Central Washington or North Central Oregon, drop into the Fly Fishing Strategies Fly Shop in the Dalles, and he will set you up. Paul, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio. Thanks, John. It was good visiting.
All right. I think you now know all sorts of ways to catch catfish if you've been listening to the show over the last half hour. Let's get back to some sportsman shows, and we've got two really big ones to remind you of, one in the east and one in the west. The Great American Outdoor Show is taking place in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It is the biggest show of its kind in the entire world, put on by the National Rifle Association and drawing some 200,000 attendees over its 9-day run between the 2nd and 10th of February. If you want details and tickets, go to greatamericanoutdoorshow.org. The other big show, the second biggest one in the United States, is going off during the same time frame. It's the Pacific Northwest Sportsman Show. It's happening at the Expo Center in Portland, Oregon, February 6th through the 10th. This one's going to draw 60,000 or more outdoors enthusiasts from all over the western U.S., and we are going to have a booth there too. Do drop by and say hello, and don't forget to sign up for a chance to win the $100 gift certificate from Max Lures we'll be giving away there. In addition to these big shows, we've got some specialty shows to tell you about. The National Wild Turkey Federation's annual convention and sportsman show will be happening at the Gaylord Opryland Resort and Convention Center in Nashville, Tennessee. The sportsman show portion is happening February 15th through the 17th and features all sorts of exhibitors specializing in turkeys and turkey hunting. As you might imagine, there's going to be some turkey calling competitions too. Another specialty show is the Milwaukee Muskie Expo. This one is also the 15th through the 17th at the Washington County Fair Park in West Bend, Wisconsin. It's all about that toothy, hard-fighting fish of 10,000 casts. There's going to be a bunch of exhibitors, seminars from muskie fishing pros, and bring the kids, because if they're 16 or under, they get in for free. Continuing with specialty shows, there's the Fly Fishing Show. It is a traveling show with all sorts of well-known celebrities from the world of fly fishing, to include Gary Borger, and they will be giving presentations on casting, fly tying, destinations, tactics, and more. This weekend through Sunday, the show is in Edison, New Jersey at the Convention Center. Next Friday the 1st and Saturday the 2nd, they'll be in Atlanta. And February 16th and 17th, they will be at the Linwood Convention Center in Linwood, Washington. Finally, for you saltwater angling aficionados, don't miss the Saltwater Sportsman Show in Salem, Oregon, February 23rd to the 24th. This is put on by the Oregon Coalition for Educating Anglers, also known as Ocean, a nonprofit, all-volunteer group dedicated to extending ocean fishing seasons and maintaining healthy fisheries for rockfish and marine salmon. This show just gets bigger and bigger. There's going to be all sorts of vendors who are all about saltwater fishing and boating there, as well as a great lineup of seminars that will help you catch everything from salmon to halibut to tuna. Find out more at saltwatersportsmanshow.com. On top of this, there are all sorts of other shows out there coming up in the weeks ahead we didn't even get a chance to mention, like the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo happening in Salt Lake City, February 14th through the 17th, the Springfield Sportsman Show in West Springfield, Massachusetts, billed as the Northeast's strongest fishing, hunting, and outdoor show. That one's going on February 22nd through the 24th, and there's the Idaho Sportsman Show in Boise coming up February 28th through March 3rd. Time prevents us from giving you any more details about all of those shows right now, so just Google the show we mentioned to get more information about it. While you're online, check out talkamericaradio.us. It is the new voice of conservative talk radio, and we're a part of their lineup every Saturday morning from 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also hear this show in its entirety on demand as a podcast. Just look for America Outdoors Radio on Stitcher, Podbean, or YouTube and subscribe to the channel you find it on. I've got to get back to my booth at the Washington Sportsman Show, but I do hope you are blessed in the days ahead with some time outside, fishing or hunting, or at least spending some time at a sportsman show near you talking about these activities and planning for your next great adventure. Remember, it's your country and your outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it.